The idea that there seems to be an ignorance in the fact that, in Western civilization and civilization in general, we've spoken about this in relation to the world of science and academia, that there's a loss of respect for the imagination. As you've always said in your work, people are leaving consciousness at the door, and we're seeing the results of what happens when you do that. So, yeah, let's take it away from there.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly it. Basically, it's unpacking statements I've made years ago that just, again, all you could make was the statement. You really couldn't extrapolate, or you would have limited time. My post-humanism talk, for instance, is exactly like that. It's only the last hour of the entire presentation and you just slightly get into these matters, just again an overview. And I've had to be okay with that because other things were on the shelf, and I think at that time were more of a priority, But because of enslaved members, said last time as well, it's not that those big projects are still undergoing, but we're coming into the harbor now, and so as you get things organized and you can see you're coming into port, it allows you to sort of really take an inventory of the subjects that pertain to the things we've been talking about, or even like we're doing now, to enlarge upon something, because articles are one thing, but again, really those are just sort of appetizers. It's in these podcasts that we get to really expand on them, in ways that you could never really do in an article. But there's so many of those ideas that but again, it is like going back to the early days, when I made these statements about solutions, and that there were solutions. But then I did add that, look, and this is reflected in the articles, I can tell from feedback and stuff like that. Sometimes those articles can throw people a bit because they're very eclectic. They draw from many different, disciplines, and I'm over here one minute, and I'm over here, and I'm over here. And people think that's wrong or bad writing and so on, and it's not. What it is a demonstrative, it's demonstrative of exactly the manner of solution. In this one we'll be talking about today, and bringing together, a whole host of different people, focusing mostly on Ayn Rand, but there's William Blake in there. There's, Gabriel Marcel. There's all sorts of mystics. How do you bring these people to the same table? I mean, this is, how do you do it, right? That's an art. So right now, as I said, it's really time to really showcase that particular art, for the members specifically, because that was been promised in years back. Otherwise, it isn't just a big scattered mess, and then I failed. But the point is that now I'm going to really show, as we pull in, I'm going to lay the treasures out. There is a treasure inherent in being able to see dissimilarity. They're not contradictions. They're variations. And that's what makes great music, a great symphony. Now, it takes the ear a little bit of time. What the hell? Or the eye, Why am I jumping? Apparently, you can be jumping all around. And then it says, wait a minute, didn't he write about this or speak about this in another presentation? Absolutely opposite? Yes, I did. But those are not contradictions. Those are variations. Knowledge needs to be turned around. And in the end of today's talk, we will definitely bring up the subject, of education and how farcical it is, because we've been trained to do the opposite. The tunnel vision, to be declarative, to accept the authority, has to have a degree, has to have a collegiate behind him before I even, accept one word. Why? Don't you know they're liars? You haven't worked that out yet, that, the whole thing is rotten to the core. So again, looking at a thing eclectically, looking at it with an open mind is really an art. A lot of people use these words, looking at knowledge with, I've got an open mind. Prove it. Prove it, right? Prove it. Let's look at what the materialists say. Let's look what the empiricists say. Let's look at what the rationalists say. Let's look what the East has to say, right? And go from that point, and always get your arms around all the information. It'll be tricky in the end because it's not an A to Z map. But our members, people who've seasoned and know this, they know you don't have to advertise it anymore. This is the way to go. To keep an open mind and look at things eclectically from all points of view. After you've a little bit seasoned in it and you're initiated into the procedure, you would never have it any other way. And then you're like a bit defensive of those who go, but I'm telling you, it's in the Bible, verse, chapter here. God did it all, right? And so on. So, and people are going, no, the Pope may have done it all, but God, let's have a conversation about that. They're gone, right? Mm. And you'll see the dogmatic person skips out real quick when you know what we discuss. And we'll be going through some today classic stuff that if you can bring up to a materialist, I'd like to see them stand around and debate you on it. I think that's in my mysticism article, there's all sorts of examples of that, but today there'll even be some more.
That's brilliantly said, and I gotta say, I've been for our members, I've been on this sort of roller coaster ride, understanding this technique that you've been teaching, me and our members here for quite some time. I've had many moments of not frustration, but moments of where it's very difficult to try to wrap my head around all of it, and it's taken time. And there's probably many times I've sent you emails on questions and this and that, and you've always just gently said, no, just look here, check it out. And I've always really appreciated that, because it's actually helped shape my thinking. And I really am so grateful, because now that I've seen that, what you just said, how that works when it comes to understanding knowledge, what it takes to actually truly have an open mind and to start really caring about the truth. See, I think that the way to understand somebody's sincerity is to see the methods that they're using to try to get to the truth. And when you hear, like we see everywhere else, like you said, most people in academia or on the online blogs or whatever would say, oh, you can't put Schelling and Ayn Rand together in the same discussion. You can't put all these different people in all these discussions. And yet the truth is that, as you said, these are variations. And it's also when we're looking at such an amazing mystery where we don't always have all the answers, it's important to go to the great thinkers who dedicated their lives to these subjects and then tease out those gems, like you said. Obviously, from the human mind, from all of our own individual points of view, there's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of things that are in error in our thinking. But when you want to try to, really create a way of thinking that's going to help guide you towards that truth, then you're going to have to do this type of method, sort of like that Sherlock Holmes technique. And I've just always respected that about your work. And I think that I'm at that point where now when I see the way everybody just sort of brushes entire subjects aside in one sentence in their book, I just go, wow, that's incredibly ignorant. But even in the same book, I'll still read it and find a gem in there and go, wow, I still learned something from this person, So just having that respect and that love for knowledge, that's where it starts to be even capable to be able to do this.
If you're interested in truth. If you're not interested in truth, then none of what I'm saying really that much matters. But the person who is interested in truth will find out it's mostly apophatic and deconstructive. Or as you said, the Sherlock Holmes idea that it's only by the painstaking elimination of the untrue, right, that the truth is found. What? I was never told that in school. There's certain sciences that do it more than others. And so on, but ultimately never to the degree that we're doing it as an actual science, right? The painstaking, and there's the key word, right, that people check out, the painstaking elimination of the untrue. So that means awakening a different kind of consciousness that's apophatic, that's negative, that's profoundly critical and judgmental. Well, look around us. Does it look to you that those are virtues? Criticism and judgment will get you hanged today. Right? You can't even say boo to a goose. You can't point a finger at anybody before they're all, ready to, call the PC police, and all the rest of it. And in intellectual circles, it's probably the same, and I've said it before, and I mean it, that there's people with actual letters after their name, degrees, who cannot write and cannot clearly express something, or they're up shit creek with, these comments about Ayn Rand and all this nonsense that pertains zero zilch to her actual work, which is monumental. And we'll be seeing a little bit of why that is as we go. In fact, if you want to go to that, could you go to that slide, the next one, and read it? Read that comment. I think it's from Rand herself.
Yes. Oh yeah, the Romantic Manifesto. Brilliant. Art does have a purpose, and it does serve a human need. Only it is not a material need, but a need of man's consciousness. Art is inextricably tied to man's survival, not to his physical survival, but to that on which his physical survival depends, to the preservation and survival of his consciousness. Wow, that's profound.
She's addressing in this book, man as artist, as I call it, man as artist. I got, heavily relying on her work. Man as artist, what is that, right? Some people do art. This is, but no. Some people do art. She's talking about absolute ontological statement here, that we are appreciators of the world around us, of beauty. We have that sensibility. We are aesthetic creatures. We don't want to live in a gray goo. That's why we don't. There's some parties on earth that would love that to happen. Just look around at the filthy architecture. But even despite their heinous acts, right? These are the orcs. These are the Attila the Huns, or what does she call them? The witch doctors. They want to strip that away from you, because the last thing they want is an open mind and a creativity flowing from children or flowing from an adult. And therefore we have art in our world, but it's mostly just decoration. And it's a decoration of a very inauthentic type of lifestyle.